괴물이에요? Hello, 안녕하세요. I'm Shandor H. Welcome to Cinemaria, where we only talk about South Korean movies and dramas. The last series I reviewed on this channel was Marriage Lyrics for Divorce Music, and I did not like that. So I went from that show straight to Sweet Home. Sweet Home. 똑같아요. It was a pretty sharp turn. The show stars about 1 million people. Song-gang, Lee Jin-wook, Lee Si-yeon, Lee Do-yeon, Kim Sang-ho. He's in so many movies. I reviewed quite a few movies where he starred in. Let's see. Running Man, for example. Kim Gap-soo, he was awesome in Mr. Sunshine. Ko Min-si. I'm sorry, but it's impossible to name everybody. We follow the lives of the residents of an apartment building when shit hits the fan. Weird monsters appear out of nowhere, killing everyone in their way. The residents close the building down and they're trying to figure out how to survive. But since anyone can become a monster, life in the building is not easy. This show is absolutely bonkers. It's based on a webtoon. I haven't seen it, but I'm guessing that's also not a nice afternoon picnic. Sweet Home is absolutely over the top. This show is fearless. It doesn't ever hold back, and I couldn't help but appreciate that. With that said, it's very hard for me to talk about this show because I'm very mixed on how I feel about it. Hear me out. After having seen the first episode, I really wasn't into the whole thing. I felt that it was rushed. There was zero character building before the monsters appeared. Because of the overabundance of characters, the show doesn't take its time to properly introduce them. It was more like, here's this guy, and this girl, and this man, and this child, now mayhem! Having said that, by the time I got to episode 5, I couldn't wait to watch the next episode. And the next. And the whole thing. There are just so many things in here that I appreciate. First off, as it turns out pretty quick, these monsters are actually humans. They just turn into these unkillable monsters. And it seems like it isn't caused by any kind of virus. It's more like the cause of the human mind. Our fears, our desires, and most of all, our darker thoughts. The darker side of us. When I realized that this whole show is basically a metaphor for us choosing between right and wrong, I was just so happy. In a way, it's highly psychological and sociological, and it's pretty cleverly layered. But even if you don't recognize this, you can still have a great time with this one. What makes this whole thing even more interesting is Song-gang as the main character, because he's also infected, for lack of a better word, but he somehow has it under control, meaning he also cannot be killed, but he's able to maintain his humanity. So maybe there's a fine line between right and wrong, because he's broken, he's absolutely broken, but there's something really pure in him too. The show also tackles the theme of power and how humans use it. You know, give power to a person and you know what kind of a person he or she is. Power is a dangerous weapon in the wrong hands. Sweet Home also has some really good questions about leadership. How much is it emotional? How much is it logical? Where's the fine line? Again, this fine line. It's about balance. If there's no balance, it's easy for monsters to appear. Of course, you don't have to analyze the show this much. Like I said, it's absolute madness. There are lots of monsters. Some of them come from the residents. There are some pretty shady characters. There's a lot of blood. And a lot of fun. I really liked the creature designs, for example. They were pretty offbeat and diverse. Some of it was actually makeup, so it wasn't all CGI, which I really appreciated. I liked this whole concept, and just overall, I really enjoyed Sweet Home. But like I said, I feel very mixed about this show, and a lot of it actually has to do with the monsters. I did like the creature designs, but unfortunately the CGI is pretty bad. So anytime a monster appeared, it took me right out of the show because it just looked so cheap. I mean, of course, I'm sure the show didn't have a really huge budget, but it's a very important aspect when it comes to my immersion in the story. A lot of time, the movements of the creatures were sped up to make their movements weird and creepy, and it's such a cliche, and it did not look good at all. Sweet Home on paper is basically a horror series, but I never once felt like I was watching a horror show. The creatures just looked way too cartoonish for that. They never really blended into the real world that surrounded them. That was a huge letdown. Also, since there are so many characters, the characterization suffers a lot. It's really about the residents of this building. There are a lot of people. And yeah, after a while we get to know them a little better, but a lot of scenes would have been so much more powerful if the characters were a bit stronger. I'm talking about some truly dramatic stuff, which was still impactful. But this feeling of something's lacking never really left me. And it's especially true for the main character. He's not a man of words. He's a loner. He's even suicidal. But we don't know how he ended up like that. We don't know anything about him. It's only in episode 7 where we get a little flashback scene. It was probably 3 minutes long, but it immediately made me understand him. But it's only in episode 7. Why just then? Also, the show is only 10 episodes long, which is fine, at least it doesn't waste any time. But an average length of an episode is around 45 minutes, and I do think that they should have made them all at least an hour. That would have helped so much in terms of the characterization. Now, here's the weird part. I think that certain aspects of Sweet Home are genius. I seriously think that. I really liked some of the dialogues here, they were pretty deep. I love the metaphorical nature of this show. I like a lot of the action scenes. I love the fact that the people in the show are not stupid. They make some great decisions. They're resourceful. They're keeping themselves together as much as possible. It's not just about the darkness within us. It's also about the light. I really enjoyed a lot of the musical choices here. A lot of times they fit the scenes really well. And the song Warriors by Imagine Dragons gets played a lot. I hate that song. And as much as I loved a lot of things, other things were totally cringy. And every time I sat down to watch Sweet Home, usually it went something like this. Wow, that was awesome! Yeah, I don't know about that. Wow, that was great! Ooh, it looks really bad. Yeah, it's really lame. What a great theme! And it went on and on and on and on. One last problem is that at the end of the last episode, there's no resolution really to any of this. It's just a setup for season 2. Now, the problem with this is that, as of now, there's no announcement for that. It kinda ends, but it really doesn't end. So, how do I rate this? How do you rate a show where the strong parts are not just good, they're actually brilliant? Truly, but the bad things are really bad, and it changes from scene to scene. It's quite schizophrenic. Because I loved all the strong parts that much, I'm gonna give Sweet Home 78%. Certain parts of this show are absolutely genius. If you're into some over-the-top bloody fun, and if you like shows that make you think, go for this one. And then hope for season 2 to happen. 여러분, 오늘은 여기까지만 해요. 영상 봐주셔서 감사합니다. 이 영상 좋아하면 구독해주세요. See you very soon. 다음 시간에 만나요, 여러분. 안녕히 계세요.